What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we return with a familiar guest. We return with Brittany Slays of Unleash the Archers. Great to talk to you again.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep, it's so awesome to have you here. The newest album is Abyss. It's absolutely amazing. Conceptually, do you consider this just like a direct follow-up to Apex, or do you think that this is almost kind of like a new beginning for Unleash the Archers in a way?
Well, it is conceptually the sequel to Apex. So when I was writing the story for both of them, I wrote them together back in 2016. And Apex was definitely more fleshed out then, and Abyss was kind of more just a general overview or outline of where I wanted the story to go. And then when we sat down in 2019, it really came together and became clear. But it's definitely a sequel. And on the opposite side of things, though, we wanted it to sound very different from Apex. We wanted it to be its own record. We wanted to take the listener to a whole new place and tell them, a whole different side of the story. And Apex was a very dark record, and I think Abyss is a very lighthearted kind of poppy record. So, we just wanted them to stand out from one another.
Mm-hmm. In between Apex and Abyss, though, you released the Explorers EP. Was the Explorers EP almost intended to be kind of like the trailer for the sequel, if you will, or kind of like a first taste of what Abyss would sound like?
It was more of a palate cleanser than anything, I think. Kind of, okay, we're going to do this thing now. Get ready for us to do something different. So we had originally recorded Northwest Passage when we recorded Apex, and it was going to be the bonus track. But then when we heard it, we just loved it so much. We didn't want it to, kind of get lost, as bonus tracks tend to sometimes. So we decided to hold off. We recorded Queen of the Reich instead, put that on as the bonus track, and held on to Northwest Passage for a time when we knew there'd be a lull or something, no tours or anything going on. So then we recorded Heartless World as the B-side for it and put it out in the middle of last year just to kind of tide the fans over. We knew, we had already started writing Abyss and we had the studio time booked and everything, but we just wanted, to give the fans a little something. And we wanted them to hear Northwest Passage, really, because it means a lot to us. Not just, not our version, but the Stan Rogers version is close to the hearts of every Canadian, I think. So we just wanted the world to kind of discover Stan and tease as well, the original creators of Heartless World.
Yeah, it's great that you release like the bonus tracks and hidden tracks too. Because aren't you always worried? And I mention this with everybody. Aren't you always worried like the songs you leave out could be a B-side and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Yeah, I mean, you never know, right? We don't normally. We kind of are very. I'm not sure what the word you'd use to describe it, but we don't tend to just write a bunch of stuff and then choose. We always are, have a very solid direction that we're moving in together during the writing process. So it's never just the case that we're just writing a bunch of songs. We always have an idea, and everything is written around the idea, and so we don't usually have kind of tracks that are B-sides or extras or something that doesn't fit on the record, because when we write, we try and make sure that everything is in its place and doing the job that that we wrote it for.
Mm-hmm. Being that Abyss is the sequel to Apex, do you feel like that if a listener was just discovering you guys now, that like your albums are almost kind of like Lord of the Rings, like in order to get the concept of Abyss, they should listen to Apex first, and maybe in order to understand Apex, they should listen to Time Stands Still first, and so on and so forth?
I mean, it's not quite as important, maybe, as Lord of the Rings would be, but it's. I mean, it would be helpful, I suppose. Being that Abyss is quite a different record, and that we wanted them to sound very different from one another, and we wanted it to stand out from Apex quite a bit and take the listener to a new place. I don't think it's super important that you listen to Apex first, but I mean, if you want some backstory, if you kind of want to understand what's going on with the lore, then yeah, definitely listening to Apex would help. There's a lot of people out there that listen to Apex and they don't, really care about the story that's going on behind it. They just love the music. They love singing along to the choruses or whatever, that kind of thing. So, if you're that kind of person, you just want to enjoy some catchy tunes, then yeah, it's not really too big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not like you're like I feel like especially after listening to Abyss, and I don't know how you would necessarily feel about this, but I almost consider Abyss to be what I call shuffle friendly because like I listened to the album chronologically. I started off with Waking Dream and ended with Afterlife. But I feel like if a person wanted to start off with Legacy or Through Stars or Faster Than Light, I feel like this album can be approached from many different angles.
Well, that's good because we certainly didn't write it that way.
Oh,
We were kind of like, oh no, what have we done here? Because we really were very calculated in the whole writing process to make sure that every song felt right with the song that came before and that it all flowed really perfectly, from one into the next, and that they made sense where they were at in the record, and not just story wise, because I wrote all the lyrics at the end, so we really could have put them in anywhere if we wanted, but to me it was very important that they followed this emotional journey that the immortal was taking. So at the end of it, we kind of were like, this is really stupid because this is not how people consume media anymore or music. It's all about playlists and singles and creating your own, list of your favorite songs and that kind of thing. And so we were just like, hopefully people will be able to do that. So hearing you say that is really reassuring because we want people to be able to do that. We want you to sit back, listen to the whole thing beginning to end every time, or pick your favorites, throw them on your Spotify playlist and head out the door. So it's as much as we wrote every song to stand alone and to have its own little thing about it that made it special or memorable, we also wanted them to feel right when you listen to them one after the other.
yeah. Well, what I've noticed is because you even mentioned that it was almost kind of like a preconceived idea that Abyss does sound a little bit different than Apex. Would you say that the music in itself is like the concept that you come up with also influences the music as well as the lyrics?
Yeah, we so what I did is I wrote the whole story out as a track by track guideline, and in each track description basically it was kind of like chapter one, and this is what's happening in the story, this is how I want the listener to feel, this is how I want the song to sound, and here's a track or two or a band or a particular album or whatever that could influence the sound of this, and I sent that to Andrew and he just used that to write every single riff. So it was constantly written with the story in mind. But that being said, a lot of the time it was, Andrew coming to me and saying, I have this riff and I can't get it out of my head and I really think that it could work on the record, but I'm just not sure where it's going to fit. And then we'd work on it together and I'd say, oh yeah, no, absolutely that would work for this song. Like, yeah, let's do it. And it was purposefully separated from Apex, not just musically, but like time. We took 6 months off from doing anything musically. We didn't play a single show. We didn't jam, nothing, just so that we could separate ourselves from that old record and from what we had done before, so that just to make sure that we didn't write anything even remotely similar. And we had a whole bunch of new influences as well. We're all really into synthwave right now, and like weird country and kind of not even like pop music but just sort of pop rock and all the stuff that's really popular right now, and it's definitely influenced the new record, and I think that's why a lot of the riffs that you hear on this album are quite a bit different from what we wrote on Apex.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was listening to Abyss, I was thinking to myself, they were definitely listening to Depeche Mode at one point during the course of this. And there's been a lot of
Tears for Fears, man. Like it's like serious. So many like hilarious old school '80s bands and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of metal bands actually have been taking inspiration from like that '80s sense. Like Voyager from Australia, I've noticed has been incorporating that a lot. It really is like a great hybrid, and I think you guys brought it very well into your sound. And obviously, this clearly was also a preconceived idea, right? I know you wanted to make something that sounded different, but did you go into the making of Abyss and we wanted to incorporate more synths and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And quite a few of the songs were written around the synth part. a lot of times Andy would bring us a guitar riff, but just as many times he'd bring us a synth riff and say like, "What do you think of this?" And I was thinking that this is how we'd start Soulbound or whatever, that kind of thing. And it was a part of the writing process just as much as everything else, because we knew we were going to have synth on every song, well, almost every song, and that we wanted it to be a big part of the writing process, but it's not the main part.
Yeah.
It's kind of just another layer. It's a piece of the foundation. We wanted it in there to make the record sound different and to bring the reader to a more, celestial science fiction type realm. But we didn't want it to be the focus. So it was just really kind of like walking the fine line, basically, the whole time.
Yeah, and you ended it on a completely different note with Afterlife. I was like saying, 1 minute we took a trip into space, and then Afterlife brought us like to the Middle Ages.
Yeah, right. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, of course, going back to Lord of the Rings. Now, if you don't mind me asking, having, being that Unleash the Archers, your albums are very concept driven and you tell these stories, is there ever any personal experiences as well that influence this concept or the lyrics as well, or do you kind of use the music as a way to sort of like detach yourselves from your personal lives?
Yeah, no, I definitely use music as a way to escape the real world and real life, and I don't like singing about reality at all. I have to live it every day. I'm good, but I mean, you can't help it, right? If as a writer, the whole write what you know thing isn't just a tip. It's kind of inevitable and unavoidable. So I feel like the struggle that the immortal goes through on this record is a struggle that we all go through. He's trying to find his way in a world that he doesn't understand, and he's constantly being forced to meet the expectations of others and to basically be a tool for the plans of other people. And I feel like a lot of times we feel like that, especially in this day and age where everything is on social media and every part of other people's lives is open and accessible, and we're constantly seeing those around us be successful or do things that we want or have things that we want. And it's really hard to kind of come home at the end of the day and say, oh man, like am I doing the right thing here? Am I on the right path? And the immortal is constantly questioning that. So that's a really big part of why I wanted to write this story about a guy that at the end says, you know what, screw it. There's no such thing as fate. I alone determine my path. I can make the choices, and even though they're the hard choices, at the end of the day, that's what's got to be done. If I'm unhappy, the only person that can change that is me. So, and it's just kind of something that I hope that everyone out there can discover one day.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, especially with this narrative, you have a story that the listener can get engaged to, but I think you're able to approach it from both a very literal and metaphorical stance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try not to write super literal to the point where the only thing you can understand is the story going on. I'd like to make it, abstract as well, so that you can apply your own meaning to it, and that this song can be whatever you need it to be. If you just want it to be telling a story, that's cool. But if you want it to be something that you think about, when you remember someone you've lost, or a particularly awesome day, or things like that, I try and write so that you can do both.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good way of putting it, because sometimes I feel like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because if you have a concept album, some could criticize it for being that you're like too dictated by the story, that there's really no room for interpretation at all, and then some people could argue that the concept is too vague and that, the point doesn't get across. So I feel like you really got the best of both worlds, especially with Abyss.
Thank you.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, when you're playing this material live and when you are recording it in the vocal booth and everything, do you almost like have to portray a character in a way when you're playing on stage? Do you feel like that's what you're doing, or is there still maybe like a method of you expressing a personal side of you as well?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a little bit of both. In the studio, it definitely helped to feel like I was right there, in the immortal's shoes, whatever was happening to him, to get that emotion across. I think it was really important to kind of immerse myself in the story. And when we're jamming all the new tracks, I mean, they're just so exciting and fun, and you haven't been playing them for 5 years, so you can't help but have a really good time and get involved. But yeah, I try to always sort of take that more abstract side of things, the put your own meaning to it side of things, and portray that to the audience as much as possible. But there are a couple tracks like "The Wind That Shapes the Land." I cannot help but absolutely get lost in that story, and I mean, I like find myself like closing my eyes the whole time, and I'm like, oh my god, like you're about to play this on stage, like you can't just stand there with your eyes closed the whole time, like get out of this headspace. But I can't help it, like I just really feel that song so deeply that I honestly kind of almost feel like I am the immortal. It's really weird. It's kind of interesting, but hopefully I won't be doing that on stage.
If you do, I'm sure people will welcome it with open arms, because I feel like these songs, people are able to, the listener is able to kind of put themselves in the immortal shoes, because even just instrumentally too, I feel like the songs feel many different emotions and resonate with people. So I think with your voice and with your range and with the band, as well, I feel like you're able to kind of make the audience feel something. You should do what Amigo the Devil does and have everybody do a very sad and miserable circle pit where they just pace in a circle, like looking with their head down.
I'm not one to ever ask the audience to do anything. I feel like if they want to do a sad circle pit, I'm not going to stop them.
Yeah, Amigo the Devil made people do that at a festival too. So
that's hilarious.
So if you could kill a buzz at a festival, you're king.
Everybody be sad.
Wow, you got to try that one time.
I'll do my best.
Especially if you play "The Wind That Shapes the Land."
Yeah, right.
Do you almost like is there almost kind of like a similar art and a similar energy into playing live as you are when you're rehearsing with the band, or even songwriting? Or do you feel that songwriting and performing are almost two completely separate entities that you have to master?
Well, I mean, the studio is very different. It's difficult to get that same energy and that same emotion in a little black box, as opposed to when you're up on stage and you've got this amazing audience and energy all around you. So it's kind of something that you got to learn to master, really, being in the studio. And songwriting as well is a very, I mean, even though we do it together, the whole thing, at the end of it all, it's just me and the lyrics is always how we go about it. At the end, I'm all by myself, just with this one really super important part, and it's difficult. It can be kind of isolating sometimes, but it really helps having a story underneath everything, because I know what I need to say. It's just a matter of saying it right. So that it definitely helps. But on stage, I mean, it's a whole different game. It's all about the audience, and it's all about interacting with them and passing that energy back and forth. And I just feel like when you're in that songwriting process, you're constantly thinking about those moments. I mean, at least I am. I'm constantly thinking, oh, is the audience going to be able to sing along with this? Are they going to do haze here? Are they going to clap? Are they going to mosh at this part? Are they going to headbang? And I'm just, it's on, top of mind at all times. And when we're jamming it, when we're just practicing the songs, absolutely I get lost in the moment sometimes, and like I visualize the crowd in front of me often. And it was actually really funny, because at the end of the last jam, Scott was like, "Britt, what are you doing?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Why do you have such a big smile on your face right now?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I just kind of was pretending that I was playing to a live audience." And he was like, "Yeah, I could tell."
Well, I'd imagine with your use of crowd interaction, and as well as like portraying a character on stage, there almost has to be kind of like a choreography that you have to rehearse in a way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying out all the moves, seeing what works. Do I point here? What do I do?
Well, when you play in New York City, you're in the hardcore capital, so you got to throw a couple punches.
Oh, absolutely! Always throwing punches. I'm Rocky at the top of the stairs every time.
Awesome. So, Before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Great to be able to talk to you again. Great work on the new album. And just, is there any way? Obviously, the new album's coming out this Friday. Is there just any way? I know that thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named. I'm not giving it any publicity on my outlet. Just, is there any way fans can support you? After the Dragon Force tour getting canceled, and is there also where people could find your merch? And could we be expecting maybe some live stream performances before tours can happen again?
Yeah, we're doing a live stream on Saturday.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah, starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time. You can buy tickets on ticketspice.com. We are, it's going to be it's a live show. We're in a venue. We're up on stage. It's not like us just staring at each other in a studio. It's a real show. So we'd love it if everyone could come hang out with us, and that will definitely support us for sure. We owe Napalm a lot of money, so yeah, that's kind of the only thing that we got planned right now, though. So it's like a album release show, basically, is what we're doing. So yeah.
Awesome. Are you guys gonna cover any damages that fans will do in their living room when they like throw their chair against the wall or something like that and get really into the show? Are you guys covering that?
No, but I do recommend moving all of your furniture aside. Standing room only at this one.
Somebody made the best meme ever of like a building that was like on fire, and like it says like online concerts be like, it shows the building on fire with a comic bubble saying "sick riffs, bro." So
yeah, exactly, for sure. It's gonna be interesting. I don't. I mean, the best part of playing a show is the audience. So it's gonna be weird playing to a camera, but we're gonna do our best.
Well, people really connect with you guys when you play live. They connect with you on the album. I'm sure everybody is going to appreciate this, and we look forward to seeing it. But thank you so much, Brittany. I really appreciate it. Everybody, we are here with Brittany Slays of Unleash the Archers Abyss, coming out this Friday via Napalm Records. Pick it up then when supplies last forever. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.